the broken body in the smoke. The sky was red with fire. Ash floated down like snow. The battlefield had gone quiet, but the ground was still hot, and the air smelled like burning metal. All around, dead machines and bodies lay twisted and forgotten. Marcus. Rain, a human soldier, moved slowly through the smoke. He had lost contact with his unit 2 days ago. His leg was bleeding, and his arm was burnt, but he kept walking. Something had pulled him this way. A sound, maybe a whisper, had come through the wind. He heard it again, a soft voice, weak, almost gone. Marcus turned toward a broken metal transport half buried in rubble. Its outer shell had the royal markings of the alien race called the Lumerians, a proud and powerful species who ruled several star systems. The human war with the Lumerians had lasted 5 long years. Marcus had killed their soldiers, watched his friends die from their blades, but still. He moved closer. Another whisper. This time clearer. Help. Please. He climbed over a large chunk of wreckage and dropped into the smoking wreck. His boots hit broken glass. Then he saw her. She was lying there, half covered by metal beams. Her silver-blue skin was scratched and bloodied. Glowing violet eyes stared up at him with pain and hatred. Her body didn't move below the chest. She was a Lumerian princess. Marcus froze. The red war markings on her body proved her identity. Royal class. If he helped her, he would be a traitor. If he left her, she would die alone. The princess tried to raise her hand but failed. Her voice was dry and sharp. Don't touch me, filthy human. Marcus took a breath. You want to die here? She didn't answer. He stepped closer, gently moved, the beam off her chest. She winced but didn't scream. Her pride was still strong, even while broken. You're paralyzed, he said. Get away, she hissed. But Marcus didn't listen. He pulled off his burnt jacket, wrapped it around her bare shoulders, and lifted her up in his arms. She was heavier than she looked, and her limbs hung limp like a doll's. Still, he held her carefully. You will regret this, she whispered. My people will kill you. Maybe, Marcus said. But I'm not leaving you here. He carried her out of the wreck, stepping through ash and fire. Every step hurt. His leg bled more with every mile, but he didn't stop. For hours he walked through what was left of the war zone. The sky stayed red. The land was dead. Her eyes stayed open, watching him, judging him. When the sun disappeared behind dark clouds, Marcus found a cave made of black stone and took shelter. He laid her down gently on the floor, used what little cloth he had to make a pillow for her head. I don't need your help, she said coldly. I know, Marcus replied. He took out his last food bar, broke it in half and placed one piece near her mouth. She turned her face away. I'd rather starve. Marcus didn't argue. He ate his half quietly and put the rest back in his bag. That night, rain fell. Acidic rain. Marcus covered her with his body to protect her. She didn't thank him, but deep inside, a memory returned to her. Her own royal guards had run when the ship crashed. She had screamed for help. No one came, except this human. In the silence, Marcus whispered to her, I'm going to carry you to the nearest outpost. I don't care if you hate me. You deserve to live. Why? She asked softly. Why do you care? Marcus looked at the ceiling of the cave. Because I saw enough death today. She closed her eyes and said no more. Outside, in the shadows of broken hills, something watched them. A creature with glowing eyes and silent steps. It wasn't human. It wasn't Lumerian. It was hunting. And it had caught their scent. The morning came slowly. The sky was still dark, and the rain had left steam rising from the cracked earth. Marcus woke before the princess. He checked her pulse, still weak but steady. Her breathing was shallow, like each breath hurt her. He didn't say anything. just took off his soaked shirt and wrung it out before using it to wipe some dust from her face. She opened her eyes, groggy and cold. She didn't say thank you. She only stared at him, then looked away like he was dirt beneath her. He was used to that. He'd seen that same look during the war, especially from the highborn aliens like her. But something about this moment was different. This time she wasn't giving orders from a palace or leading troops from a warship. She was broken, helpless, and her life was in the hands of a human she was taught to hate. Marcus carefully lifted her again, adjusting the sling he'd made from scraps of wiring and cloth. Her limbs dangled lifeless. Her body twitched once, then went still. "You shouldn't carry me," she muttered as they crossed a burned riverbed filled with melted metal and bone. "You're not strong enough. You're not even worthy." Marcus didn't answer. "You'll die before we make it 10 more miles, she added. He kept walking. They came across a ruined Lumerian pod ship sticking out of the mud like a crushed egg. Marcus decided to check it for supplies. He placed her gently beside a blackened boulder, her back supported by a broken steel pipe. "I won't run," she said flatly. "Not worried," he replied, and climbed into the wreckage. Inside, the pod was scorched. Smoke had eaten through most of the inner walls, but behind a half-melted control panel, he found a small canister of clean water and 2 compressed ration packs, just enough to keep them alive one more day. When he returned, she was still there watching him, her expression unreadable. He gave her a sip of water slowly. Her throat worked hard to swallow as if the act itself burned her pride. "I'm Sirathel," she said after a long pause. Marcus blinked. "What?" "My name. Since you refuse to leave me to die, you should know who I am." "Marcus," he replied. "Marcus Rain, Earth's 4th Infantry." There was silence between them again. Then softly she said, "You're the enemy." "Yeah," he said, "but I'm also the one carrying you." For a brief second her lips curved, not a smile, but something close to it. Then her eyes snapped to the trees behind him. "Something's coming," she said sharply. Marcus turned. The forest was silent. Too silent. Then he saw it. A shimmer in the air, almost invisible, moved between the trees. A cloaked predator, likely a biomech from one of the war labs. Lumerian tech, but abandoned after the fall. It didn't care who they were. Just followed heat and scent. He dropped low and pulled Sirathel close, shielding her with his body. "Can it see us?" she whispered. "If it gets within 30 meters, yes." The thing moved like a ghost, sniffing the air. Its mouth was a maze of long teeth. Its legs moved like liquid metal, and its tail dragged behind like a living blade. Marcus pulled a flare, grenade from his belt, his last one, and waited. When the creature turned its head, Marcus threw the flare high into the air. It exploded in a burst of red light, blinding the area for 3 seconds. He grabbed her, ran toward a slope, and slid down just as the creature screamed behind them, its sensors confused. They landed in a pile of ash and bone, coughing. The predator roared and thrashed but couldn't find them. Not yet. They found another shelter, an old Lumerian data relay station buried under dirt and vines. Inside it was dark, dry, and still powered. Marcus sealed the door and laid her on a flat piece of old armor. "I thought you said humans were weak," he said, panting hard. Sirathel looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time she didn't speak with hatred. "You are strange," she whispered. "Strange and stubborn." He leaned against the wall and slid down beside her. "Thanks," he said, closing his eyes for a moment. As silence filled the room, Sirathel turned her head and stared at the roof. A whisper left her lips, soft and almost broken. "Why did you save me, when even my own people ran?" Marcus didn't open his eyes. "Because you were crying," he said quietly, "and I couldn't leave you there." She looked at him, eyes shining with something she hadn't felt in years. Confusion, pain, and something dangerously close to trust. Outside, the predator circled, But for now, they were safe. For now. The walls of the old Lumerian station hummed quietly, the power core still working after years of war. Flickering lights gave the place an eerie blue glow, and dust floated in the air like forgotten time. Marcus sat near the sealed door, one hand gripping a rusty metal rod he had found, while the other rested on the blaster he barely had ammo for. Sleep pulled at his eyes, but he didn't let go. Sirathel lay on the makeshift bedding beside him, her body unmoving except for her slow, shallow breaths. She hadn't spoken in hours, but Marcus knew she was awake. Her fingers would twitch from time to time, like her nerves were fighting to come back to life. Outside, the creature was still searching. The biomech predator didn't give up easily. It had tasted the trail of royal blood, hers, and it hunted with programming that knew no rest. It didn't care that Marcus was human, or that Sirathel was broken. To it, they were both targets. Marcus knew they couldn't stay in the shelter forever. The power readings were low. Once it lost power, the heat signatures would leak out, and the beast would find them. He had maybe a few hours. He quietly stepped away and searched the storage compartments. He found a cracked scanner tablet, some half-dried food paste, and an old emergency beacon. Its signal range only a few kilometers. Not enough, but something was better than nothing. When he returned, Sirathel was watching him. Her voice was quiet. "You don't sleep." "I can't," Marcus said. "Not until you're safe." "You're foolish," she said, her tone flat. "No one will reward you for this." "I'm not doing it for a reward." "Then why?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. He sat down again and looked at her carefully. "You're not just some soldier or noble. You're someone who was left behind. Same as me." Sirathel turned her head away. He leaned back and stared at the ceiling. "When I was trapped behind enemy lines 3 months ago, my own people said they couldn't risk a rescue. I survived on moss and snow for 2 weeks before finding a Lumerian deserter. She let me live. I owe that moment my life." Sirathel said nothing, but her expression softened slightly. Marcus continued, "Maybe you remind me of her. Or maybe I just refuse to let this galaxy kill every good thing left in it." A loud metallic clang shook the shelter walls. Marcus jumped to his feet, rod in hand. The lights flickered once. Then again, the creature was here. It had found the station. He raced to the controls and watched the scanner. Red marks move toward their position, fast. The outer seal wouldn't last long. He grabbed the emergency beacon and crushed the shell to expose its core. "We need a distraction," he muttered. "What are you doing?" Sirathel asked, her voice sharper now. "I'm giving it something to chase." Marcus opened the rear hatch of the station, just enough to slide the blinking beacon through. The cold wind rushed in, and with it came the scent of death. Marcus tossed the beacon into the woods behind them. A moment later, the predator howled and sprinted after it. He shut the hatch and locked it. "That bought us a little time." Sirathel looked at him, her face pale. "You risked being seen? Just for that?" Marcus sat again, his strength almost gone. "You'd be surprised what people will do when they care." For a moment neither of them spoke. Then softly she asked, "Why do you care? I am your enemy." "No," he said quietly, looking at her. "You're a person. And I think you've been hurt more than you let anyone see." Her breath caught in her throat. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not even her own people. Then, suddenly her eyes widened. "Marcus, look, your arm." He looked down. A deep slash across his forearm had opened, probably from the earlier escape. He was bleeding badly now. "Damn," he whispered, pulling fabric from his shirt to tie it. Sirathel tried to reach out. Her fingers moved an inch. "You're healing," Marcus said, surprised. "Some function is returning," she said weakly, "but not fast enough." He sat closer, leaning against the wall beside her. "Then I'll carry you again tomorrow," he said. "We'll keep moving until someone finds us." Sirathel turned her head. "You will die before then." Maybe. But I'd rather die saving someone than live forgetting I had the chance. She stared at him. Not with hate, not even with pity. Something new now, something fragile and strange. Trust, guilt, maybe even care. Outside, the predator screamed into the forest, fooled for now. But it would come back, and they would have to face it. Together. By the next day, the sky had changed. The red clouds were fading into a bruised gray, and cold wind blew ash across the dead plains. The predator had vanished into the trees, its tracks faint, but Marcus knew it wasn't gone for good. It would circle back eventually. Marcus helped Sirathel sit up against the shelter wall. Her body was still mostly paralyzed, but now she could move her left hand slightly. Her fingers trembled like new leaves in a storm. It wasn't much, but it meant hope. "We need to leave before sunset," Marcus said, tightening his makeshift sling. Sirathel gave a tired nod. "We'll never outrun the creature, not without help." Marcus glanced down at the cracked Lumerian scanner tablet. The signal was weak, but he saw something. A rescue beacon, Lumerian frequency, roughly 12 miles north. It had been activated just an hour ago. Maybe survivors, maybe a ship. His heart lifted. "I found something. A signal." Sirathel narrowed her eyes. "From my people?" "Maybe. I'll carry you. If we keep moving, we can reach it by dawn." Sirathel hesitated. "If it's my people, they may not welcome a human." Marcus chuckled. "That's the story of my life." He packed the supplies into a torn rucksack, lifted her into the harness on his back, and stepped out into the pale, dead morning. The wind had picked up. The trees moaned like old spirits. Every step was pain. But he walked. Hours passed. They crossed shattered roads, burned trees, and fields of broken bones. Not once did he put her down. Not once did he complain. Sirathel spoke quietly while resting her chin on his shoulder. "You walk as if I weigh nothing." "You weigh plenty," Marcus replied, breathing hard. "But my guilt weighs more." She blinked, surprised. "Guilt? For what?" "For everything this war has done. I've seen too much. I've done things I can't erase. Carrying you, maybe it's the first right thing I've done in a long time." She fell silent. Suddenly, a mechanical buzz filled the air. Marcus dropped to his knees behind a fallen statue. Above them, a scout drone floated, silently, shaped like a silver claw with scanning lights blinking in search mode. "Lumerian," Sirathel whispered. "It's one of ours." Marcus looked at her. "Will it recognize you?" "If it's still linked to the royal network, yes. It'll know my DNA." The drone beeped. A red light focused on them. Then it spoke in a robotic tone. "Subject identified. Princess Sirathel of Lumeria. Status critical. Priority tag. Royal retrieval. Warning. Unauthorized life form detected. Human presence. Label. Hostile escort. Order. Immediate execution protocol." Marcus's blood froze. Sirathel gasped. "No." The drone's blaster arm extended, ready to fire. But before it could lock on, Marcus grabbed a rock and hurled it at the drone's eye. It missed the core but hit the side hard enough to make it wobble. He turned and ran, carrying her into the woods. Lasers burned past their heads, hitting trees and stones. One flash sliced Marcus's shoulder, but he didn't stop. He ran like the forest was fire and death was behind him. The drone followed, for several minutes before smoke poured from its side and it finally crashed into a boulder. The forest grew silent again. They hid under a fallen log, gasping for air. Sirathel looked at him with wide, stunned eyes. The drone, it was following orders from the council. Marcus wiped blood from his cheek. "They want me dead." She nodded slowly. "Yes, it was part of the royal tracker protocol. Anyone found with a royal in critical condition, if not another noble, must be removed. To protect secrets." Marcus laughed bitterly. "So I saved your life. And now your own system wants to kill me. Sirathel looked away, guilt on her face. It's not right, she whispered. But it is our law. He looked at her with pain in his eyes. And if we make it to that rescue beacon, will they shoot me on sight? Her silence was louder than any answer. He slowly stood. I should have left you in that wreck. But she suddenly grabbed his arm. Her fingers, still weak, clenched with surprising strength. No, she said firmly. I was wrong to let that happen. I'll stop it. I promise. Marcus stared at her, breathing hard. You'll stop it? I am still royal. If I live long enough to speak, I can change the order. He shook his head. Then we better keep moving. As night fell, they saw a blinking light far ahead, through the smoke, an emergency beacon pulsing at the base of a cliff. They were close, but as Marcus stepped toward it, he heard something behind them. A low growl. The predator was back, and it wasn't fooled this time. The growl behind them was deep, low, and too close. Marcus didn't look back. He tightened his grip on Sirathel and ran. His boots slammed against the cracked soil as the predator burst through the smoke with a screech, its glowing eyes fixed on them. It had followed their trail for miles, now it was ready to strike. Marcus didn't have a plan. He only had one goal: get to the beacon. The cliff ahead was steep, but a metal staircase clung to its side, half broken but still climbable. Marcus reached it and began climbing fast, every step rattling under their combined weight. Below, the biomech charged forward, claws tearing into rock, leaping after them. Sirathel looked over his shoulder. It's faster. Too fast. Marcus didn't answer. He couldn't waste the breath. His arm was bleeding again. His back screamed in pain, but he climbed. One of the steps cracked under his boot. He slipped, nearly dropping her. She let out a short cry, but he caught himself just in time and kept going. They reached the top. Ahead stood a tall Lumerian outpost tower, long abandoned but glowing faintly with blue light from the rescue beacon at its base. Marcus limped toward Shrite. The air smelled like fuel and ozone. The predator reached the base of the cliff and began to climb the wall itself, metal claws digging into stone like it was butter. Inside the tower, Marcus found a small defense console. The turret above still worked, but its manual controls were melted. Sirathel, still weak, pointed to the back wall. That's a control relay port. If you lift me, I can try. I remember the command codes. Without hesitation, he carried her again, this time into the control chair. Her fingers, barely working, hovered over the cracked glass screen. She whispered ancient phrases in her language, symbols flashing with each word. Behind them, the creature had reached the top of the cliff. Its breath came in short bursts, its tongue tasting the air. Come on, Marcus muttered. Then, with a final command, Sirathel slammed her palm onto the screen. The turret above the tower spun once, locked on, and fired. The beam struck the predator in the chest. It screeched, stumbled, and was blasted off the cliffside, its body crashing through trees far below. The sound echoed for miles. Silence returned. Marcus let out a shaky breath. You did it. Sirathel slumped in the chair. I had to. It would have killed you. And me. He carefully pulled her back into his arms and laid her down near the beacon. Then distant hums filled the sky. 3 Royal Lumerian ships appeared above, descending with grace and power. Their blue-white lights cut through the fog as they hovered over the beacon zone. Sirathel looked up, pain in her eyes. They came. The largest ship landed. Dozens of armored guards marched out in formation. Their helmets were sharp, their steps perfect. In the middle stood a tall figure in silver armor, a royal commander. Marcus stood slowly as they approached. He didn't put his hands up. He was too tired, too broken. The guards pointed weapons at him. The commander saw Sirathel on the ground and shouted, "The princess is alive! Protect her!" Sirathel raised her voice weakly. He saved me. Do not fire. But the commander's eyes narrowed. He is human. Enemy. Protocol must be followed. Marcus didn't resist as the guards seized him. His arms were tied behind his back. He didn't even look afraid. Sirathel reached out. Stop. You can't. The commander ignored her. As per Royal Law 7.4, any unauthorized alien escorting a royal during wartime is to be detained and executed. Sirathel screamed. I am the crown's heir. You will obey me. The guards froze. The commander stiffened. Then, after a long silence, he bowed deeply. Your Highness. Your first command. Her voice trembled. She looked at Marcus, his bruised face, his tired eyes. Her lips moved, but her words were cold. Arrest the human. He is to be executed at dawn. Marcus flinched like he'd been stabbed. The guards pulled him away. He didn't fight. He didn't even speak. As the doors of the dropship closed behind him, Sirathel turned her face away, so no one could see the tears forming in her eyes. The cell was cold and bright, too clean for a place, meant for someone marked for death. Marcus sat alone, his wrists still cuffed in strange glowing bands that hummed every few seconds. A Lumerian guard stood outside the glass wall, silent as a statue. No one had spoken to Marcus since they threw him in here. He sat hunched on the bench, staring at nothing. His body ached in every muscle, but it wasn't the pain that made him feel sick. It was her words, executed at dawn. He had carried her, bled for her, starved for her, saved her from the biomech, and in the end, her first command, her first royal act, was to throw him to the wolves. Marcus clenched his fists. Maybe he was a fool. Maybe all this time he thought he was helping someone who would remember, someone who might care. But no, she was still royalty, and he was still a human, just a tool, a mistake. The door opened. An older alien, armored in silver robes, stepped inside. His face was scarred, one eye cybernetic. He looked at Marcus with curiosity, not hate. You are Marcus Rain, he said in a rough voice, the human who carried the princess. Marcus didn't respond. The old man walked closer. I am Archivist Galen, former advisor to the royal family. Before I'm told to forget you, I wanted to see the one who brought our heir back from death. Marcus looked up slowly. And? Did I meet expectations? The archivist gave a sad smile. You exceeded them, which is why your death disturbs me, Marcus scoffed. Not enough to stop it, though. Galen studied him. Do you know why she ordered your execution? Because I'm not like her. That's enough, isn't it? No, Galen said, quietly. She did it because you are different. Marcus frowned. What? The archivist paced slowly. Princess Sirathel was raised in a palace surrounded by liars and cowards. Her own family left her to die. She knows how the court works. If she had defended you on the landing pad, publicly challenged the commander, you would have been, shot on the spot, no trial, no voice, just silence. Marcus stiffened. Galen nodded. By ordering your formal execution, she delayed them. Now there must be paperwork, hearings, witnesses, delays. Marcus stared in disbelief. So, she did it to protect me? Yes, Galen said. The cold words that cut you down, I might be the very reason you're still breathing. Marcus sat back slowly, his heart pounding. She looked right at me. She didn't even blink. She couldn't, Galen replied. If she had shown pain, the court would have sensed weakness, and they would have taken her crown. Silence filled the room. Marcus leaned forward. Is she going to stop this? Galen raised a brow. That depends on her, and you. There's something else you should know. He placed a small crystal orb on the table. It glowed softly. This is her memory seal, he said. It records the moments she considers most sacred. She submitted it last night, before she slept. Galen tapped the orb. A hologram appeared. Sirathel's face, pale but strong. Her voice echoed softly. If I fail tomorrow, if they take my crown, let it be known that Marcus Rain, human soldier, is the reason I still breathe. He carried me through fire, through storm, through my own shame. He saw me as a person when even I forgot I was one. I owe him my life, and if I ever wear the crown, I will not forget it. The recording ended. Marcus looked down, his hands shaking slightly. She recorded that? He asked, voice cracking. Galen nodded. Not for the council. For you. Just then the door hissed open again. 2 royal guards entered. Prisoner, one barked. Prepare for transfer. Dawn is approaching. Galen turned sharply. He is under royal review. But the guard raised a data pad. The council overruled it. Princess Sirathel has been summoned for trial. She can no longer interfere. Marcus stood quietly. It's okay, he said to Galen. I understand. As they bound his wrists tighter and led him down the silver hall, Marcus didn't feel fear. He felt something stronger. Hope. Somewhere in the palace, Sirathel was fighting for him. Even if the galaxy didn't know it yet. The doors ahead opened to a giant chamber of light and shadows. The trial was about to begin, and Sirathel would have to make a choice, crown or conscience. The Grand Hall of Judgment was built from silver stone and floating glass. Its high ceilings sparkled like stars, and the Lumerian High Council sat like shadows on their raised thrones, watching everything with cold, shining eyes. The room was silent as Marcus Rain was brought in, hands bound, body bruised, steps heavy. He didn't look around. He didn't search for her. He had made peace with what was coming. At the center of the chamber stood a circular platform surrounded by glowing light. Marcus was pushed onto it. His voice, his history, his fate, all would be judged here. Not by trial, not by evidence, but by alien tradition. Cold, old, and unbreakable. Prisoner, said one of the counselors, you stand accused of violating royal protocol, of unlawfully carrying and influencing the crown princess. This is a crime punishable by death. Do you have anything to say before the sentence is passed? Marcus lifted his head. No, he said quietly. But I hope she lives. A murmur passed through the crowd. Even the guards looked unsure. Then the tall doors behind the council burst open. Gasps echoed through the room. It was her. Princess Sirathel entered, walking slowly, on her own feet. Mechanical leg supports, hidden under royal silk, helped her move. Her back was straight, her face calm, but her eyes burned with quiet fire. The council stood in shock. Your Highness, one said, you were not permitted. I am the heir of the crown, she said firmly, stepping onto the judgment floor. I do not require permission. She stood before Marcus. For a second, the whole room held its breath. Then she turned to the council and spoke. I gave the order for this man's execution. Yes, but not because he is guilty. I did it to buy time, to stand here now, to speak when none of you would have allowed me to before. A counselor sneered. You defied the code. I survived because of him, she shouted. He carried me for miles when my own guards fled. He gave me food, water, and warmth while bleeding beside me. He killed the predator that stalked me. He shielded me from your own drone's gunfire. The hall went silent. She looked around. Her voice softened, but it hit harder. You speak of royal dignity, of protocol, of bloodlines. But what is dignity if a human shows more honor than my own court? What is law when kindness is punished and betrayal is ignored? Marcus looked at her, his eyes wide, stunned. Sirathel stepped beside him and faced the council. I revoke the execution order, she declared. Effective now, Marcus Rain is no longer a prisoner. On what grounds? A counselor barked. She raised her hand and a royal emblem lit up on her palm. By the ancient right of life debt, she said, he is under my protection. I invoke the oath of flame, the same law that binds our blood to our saviors. He is mine to defend, and you cannot touch him. Shouts erupted. Papers flew. Counselors argued, screamed, protested. But the royal sigil on her hand was glowing. Untouchable. The head counselor slammed his staff down. So be it. The right is honored. The human walks free. Marcus's cuffs were removed. He stumbled back, still in shock. Sirathel turned to him, her voice softer now. You should hate me. I let them take you. You saved me, he said hoarsely. In the only way you could. They looked at each other, not as alien and human, not as soldier and royal, but as two survivors who had carried each other through pain, fear, and fire. Suddenly, the head counselor stood again. Your Highness, there remains one matter. You invoked the Oath of Flame. By law, the one you bind must stay at your side as protector. For life. The hall grew quiet. Marcus blinked. Wait. What does that mean? Sirathel didn't break eye contact. It means you're mine now, Marcus Rain. By Lumerian law. For life. He stared at her. Then, finally, he smiled. You could have just asked. She smirked, and the hall, once filled with judgment and cold tradition, now felt like the beginning of something new. A rebellion not of swords, but of hearts.